Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my winter TBR. So TBR stands for To Be Read. Today I'm going to be talking about 20 books that I would like to read in the next 3 months, including December. So my winter I consider to be December, January, and February. And I'm definitely not going to get to all 20 of these books. I like to do my TBRs as like a list of books to choose from. So these are the ones that I'm most interested in reading in the next few months, but I'm definitely not going to read all 20 of them. I generally tend to average like 12 to 16 books in a 3-month time period. So I figure making a list of 20 books gives me a little bit of wiggle room for some mood reading while still helping me stay focused on the things that I want to get to soon. At the beginning of my TBR videos, I like to first check in with my previous TBR, and then I go over the books that I am currently reading because I always film these halfway through the month of the first month of my TBR. And then I go over my TBR Jar Picks. I have a TBR jar that I pick out books from and add to like a running list. And then after that, the rest of my TBR will be split up by genre. So in today's video, the various genres included are fantasy, of course, that's my favorite genre, science fiction, and then I have a couple of historical fiction books. I have a contemporary book, which is definitely a little outside my comfort zone, and I also have a horror book. I will also have timestamps in the description box so that you can jump to whatever parts of the TBR you are most interested in. Okay, first let's check in with my fall TBR. So my fall TBR covered the months of September, October, and November, and I read a total of 13 books, which it's pretty average for me. 11 of those 13 were actually from my TBR. These are the 2 books that I read in the fall that were not on my TBR. I do generally allow myself up to 3 picks that are not on my TBR. Dawn Shard I hadn't really planned on reading before Rhythm of War, but I ended up picking it up. It is a novella, so it was pretty short. And then the other one, The House in the Cerulean Sea, I had not planned on reading in the fall, but it ended up getting selected for my work book club. My work book club is every other month, so sometimes when I make my TBRs, I know ahead of time what the next book is going to be, and sometimes I don't. And in the fall, I didn't know what our November book was whenever I made my TBR, and that ended up being The House in the Cerulean Sea. I am super happy that I read that one though, because that one ended up being one of my favorites of the year. Okay, that is enough about my fall TBR. Let's move on to my winter TBR, starting with what I am currently reading. And I say that in air quotes because I am filming this even later in the month than I usually do. I do usually film it like mid-month, but today is the 20th, so it's a little later than mid-month. And I've actually finished 2 books already. Maybe I shouldn't say already, it is 3/4 of the way through the month. But the first book that I finished in December was Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. I have been marathoning my way through this series because Rhythm of War was my most anticipated release of the year, and I wanted to read it when it came out in November, which I did start it in November, I just didn't finish it until December. And then the next book that I have just finished just today is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This is an adult high fantasy book that I read as part of the World Hoppers Secret Santa project. By the time this video goes up, you will have already seen other videos where I mention it, including the reading vlog and review of Senlin Ascends that I posted as part of that collaboration. And then the other book that I am actually currently reading is this one behind me. I am about halfway through this book, page 275. This is the 3rd book in the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey, and this is an adult sci-fi book that I have been meaning to read for a while, so I really wanted to try and squeeze it in before the end of the year. Okay, so next I talk about my TBR Jar Picks. So as of my fall TBR, I started doing these TBR Jar Picks a little bit differently. I kind of have accumulated quite a long list of books from things that I've pulled out of my TBR jar that I haven't read yet because I am a little bit of a mood reader and I don't like to force myself to read things when I'm not in the mood for them. So what I've decided to start doing is prioritizing 4 books out of my TBR jar list to read in a season, and my goal is to read at least 3 of them, hopefully 4 if I can, so then I'm actually kind of making progress because every season I pull out 3 new books to add to the list. So these are the 4 books that I prioritized over the fall. Unfortunately, I only read 2 of them, so I didn't quite make my 3 goal, but hey, 2 is better than 0. And then these are the rest of my TBR jar picks that are rollovers from the last TBR. And now I'm going to show you a video clip of me pulling out 3 new books to add to my list, and then I will tell you about the 4 books that I am going to be prioritizing from that list for the winter. Hey guys, so I am here to pull out 3 more books from my TBR jar for my winter TBR. Alright, I've got a purple star, which means this is a book I put in my TBR jar in 2019. The Queens of Innislayer by Tessa Gratton, which I have already read. Awesome. Let's do another one. Another purple 2019 star. Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse, which I have also already read. This is not common, but it is sort of inevitable because I do read books that I own sometimes, even when they're not from my TBR jar. Okay, another purple 2019 star. I wonder if it'll be another one that I've already read, if I can get it open. Where is the end? I see the author's name and I'm excited. Toby, back up. I think I know which one this is, I think I only own one by this author, but I need to finish unfolding it so I can see the name of the book. Oh my god, the paper's tearing. Toby, stop. Yes, I knew it. Oh, I'm so torn. Okay, so I pulled out The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, which is what I thought it was, because I'm pretty sure The Fifth Season's the only book by her that I own, and most of the books in my jar are ones that I own, not all of them. And the reason why I said I'm so torn, Toby, quit it. Go away. The papers are not for you to eat. The reason why I said I'm so torn is because I had originally wanted to start with The Fifth Season. I really think that I'm going to like it, but I recently read N.K. Jemisin's short story collection, and after reading that, I decided I wanted to start with her Dreamblood duology instead. I'm torn because should I just read The Fifth Season because I just pulled out of my TBR jar, or should I still read Dreamblood first? So I don't know, I'm gonna have to think about that one, but I'm excited because that is one that I definitely want to read. It's been on my one-day TBR for a very long time, and I was hoping to read it in 2021, so very excited to have pulled that out of my TBR jar. You are really driving me nuts. No. Okay, 1 down, 2 more to go. Ooh, I pulled out a really old one. I've got one of these striped ones, which are pre-2018, I think. And a lot of times with these really old ones, they're ones I don't even really want to read anymore. Transcendence. I think I took this off my TBR. Is this what I think it is? I think this was that caveman romance book, and after learning more about it, I decided it was not my cup of tea. I don't think I really realized it was romance, but that's what I think it is. Yeah. I took this off my TBR. I'm definitely not reading this. Man, we're not having luck today. Ooh, a gold star. Gold stars are books that I put in based on recommendations from people. Someone specifically said that they thought I would like this. And I'm super excited about this one. Oh my gosh, this one has also been on my TBR forever, and I was thinking to try and read it in 2021. I can get it open all the way. And that is 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray, and this has been recommended to me by my friend Graf. This is a YA, well, it's a trilogy, but this is the first book, and it's about parallel universes or alternate universes, and it's one that I heard about a lot when I very first joined the bookish community in 2014, 2015. It's been on my TBR forever, and I've just not really made it a priority, but it's been one that I've been wanting to read, and now I'm excited that it's on my TBR jar list because that means I'll get to it sooner rather than later. And I know Graf will be very excited that I'm going to be reading this because he's been telling me that I would like it, or that he wants me to read it for a long time. I pulled out another really old one. Oh, I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I'll probably like it. Okay, I pulled out American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I have yet to read any Neil Gaiman. American Gods was not the one I planned to start with. That's why I don't know how I feel about this, because I really wanted to start with Ocean at the End of the Lane, I think. But I know a lot of people really like American Gods too. So I'm intrigued by this. I don't know if it's gonna be my first Neil Gaiman, but I'm excited to have pulled it out of my jar. Alright, that's 3. That was an interesting mix of books to pull out this time. I have yet to pull out any of my books that I bought in 2020, which are the Pink Stars. Alright, so those 3 books are getting added to my massive TBR jar list, and we'll see which ones actually make it onto my winter TBR. Alright, see you guys later. Okay, so out of all of my TBR jar picks, these are the 4 that I'm hoping to read in the winter. The Wolf and the Whale is an adult fantasy, kind of like a historical fantasy, but it's pretty unique in that it's set like thousands of years ago, but it's about an Inuit who is kind of gender fluid, I think, from what I've heard, but it's also about her falling in love with a Viking and stuff about their gods, which is where the fantasy element comes in, and I've just heard such good things about it, and because it takes place in kind of like a cold setting, I feel like it's such a good read for the winter. I feel similarly about Burial Rites and The Broken Girls in that I think they make really good winter reads. Burial Rites is a historical fiction book that is also set in a cold setting, I think in Iceland, and The Broken Girls is like a thriller, but it's supposed to be kind of like creepy. Maybe it doesn't take place in a cold setting, but I just feel like it seems like a good winter book. And then A Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray is a YA sci-fi book about parallel universes, I believe, and it's just one that I've been wanting to read for a long time, so I got really excited when I pulled it out of my jar, so that's why that one's on the list. Okay, moving on to the part of my TBR that's split up by genres. First, I'm going to go over all of the fantasy books that I want to read, which I admit is most of the rest of my TBR. One of my big priorities is, of course, going to be The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I almost said Brandon Sanderson. You may have seen that I recently posted a video about rereading the series. I am going to host a read-along of this series. I've just really been missing these characters. This is my favorite series, and I just love this world. And the show is coming out next year, and I believe the first season is going to cover both the first book and the second book. So I want to read both of these in the next 3 months so that I am prepared for the show when it comes out. If you guys are interested in reading the Wheel of Time series, definitely go check out my announcement video for the read-along, because I also set up a really fun Discord that a bunch of people have already joined. I'm so grateful for all of you who were as excited about reading the series as I am. So if you've joined the Discord, thank you so much. I was not expecting such a large turnout, especially so early on. But I definitely want to read these 2 books in the next 3 months. And then from there, I'm not sure how quickly I'm going to be reading the series. The read-along is definitely kind of read at your own pace, so we'll see how the rest of the series goes for me, but I'm planning to start a reread that will probably last a long time. Another fantasy book that is on my list is The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. This is an adult fantasy book, and honestly, I don't really know what it's about. I've just heard a lot of people say good things about it. The main reason why I want to read this in January is because a couple of my good friends, Elliot Brooks and Jessie May, they're doing a series of buddy reads all year long, and they're gonna also do some live streams or live shows to go along with their buddy reads, kind of like a book club. And this is the book that they're reading in January, and it's one that I have had my eye on for a while, and so I was excited about the idea of having a chance to read it with a group of people and discuss it with them. So I put this on my TBR, and I'm hoping to read it in January. Speaking of like book clubs and things, my friend Jessie May, that I was just mentioning, also runs a book club called the Shelf Space Book Club, and I recently, last month in November, joined them like as a participant for the November book, which was the Sword of Kaigen, and I had a really fun time participating in the live show for that book. And there's also a Discord for the Shelf Space Book Club, and so like I just had a lot of fun participating in the Discord, discussing the book as I was reading it. So I have a couple of books that they are reading that I want to join in on. The first one is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. This is an adult high fantasy, and it's supposed to be like, what do they call it? A gunpowder fantasy? There's guns in it. That's all I know, really. And magic, but I don't really know how the magic works yet because I haven't started reading it. This is technically the December book, and the live show for this one is like on January 2nd, but it's the next book I'm planning on picking up after finishing Abaddon's Gate. Actually, I probably will start it before I finish Abaddon's Gate, but it's like the next book that I'm planning on picking up, and I am hoping to finish it in time to join for the live stream. And then the February book for the Shelf Space Book Club is City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett. and I would also like to read that book. I've heard a lot about Robert Jackson Bennett's more recent series, Foundry Side, which I definitely want to read or give a try, but I haven't started yet. It is an unfinished series, and you guys know how I am about unfinished series. But I also generally like to go in the order of publication in an author's backlist, just because, you know, authors tend to get better the more that they write and publish, and I generally enjoy books more if I read them in the order that they came out. So this is an older series that he has, and I have also heard good things about this one. I've heard it's like a geopolitical fantasy, which I don't totally understand what that means, but I'm very intrigued. And I know Reagan from Peruse Projects really loves this series. I've heard her talk about it before. And so when I saw that it was the shelf space pick for February, I got really excited and I decided that I wanted to try to read it too. And then the shelf space book club book for March is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I'm also going to try and join in for this one. This is another adult fantasy. I actually really don't have a lot of YA on this list, huh? I have definitely been shifting a little bit more towards reading more adult than YA lately. Not because I don't enjoy YA, it's just kind of where my reading tastes have been lately. But Black Sun, I've heard really good things about. It is the first in an unfinished series, but I decided I wanted to go ahead and try it, especially because it was a shelf space book club pick. If it wasn't, I probably wouldn't pick it up quite yet. But I've been hearing a really good buzz about this. I have read one Rebecca Roanhorse before. It's an adult urban fantasy, and I honestly wasn't super impressed with that, but I think that has more to do with the fact that I'm not like a super fan of urban fantasy. I prefer more high fantasy, which is what this is. And it's also, the world is like inspired by Aztec Mayan culture sort of thing. And it just sounds really cool, really fascinating. And so I'm gonna try and read that one in March. Okay, I think I misspoke. I don't remember what I said for City of Stairs, but City of Stairs is the shelf space book club pick for January, and then Black Sun is the shelf space book club pick for February. I was like, why am I talking about a March book when this TBR ends in February? I was wrong. So yeah, I'm gonna try and read Black Sun in February. And then the last fantasy book on my list is actually one that I want to read in January, and that is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I had Elantris on my fall TBR because I wanted to read it in October, and that didn't happen. So I had to push it a little bit, but my friend Leanna from Leanna's Library was planning on or wants to read Elantris in January, so I decided that I wanted to join her. We're gonna try and do it as a buddy read. I did recently return Elantris back to my library because this TBR that I'm filming, I have changed so many times in the last 3 weeks as I was like trying to finalize it. So it was kind of good that I waited so long to film this because it has been in flux up until like last Friday. But I need to go back to the library and pick up Elantris again because I want to read it very soon. Okay, moving on to the science fiction books that I want to read in the next few months. First, I have two novellas. I have Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy, which are the next two novellas in the Murderbot Diaries, novellas 3 and 4. So I previously have read the Murderbot Diaries 1 and 2 novellas, and I've really enjoyed both of them. And honestly, the main reason these two novellas are on my list for this season is because I'm gonna read them like now. I want to squeeze them in before the end of the year because, to be honest, I'm just a couple of books behind on my Goodreads goal, and I am thinking that if I read these two before the end of the year, that I might actually meet my Goodreads goal. But I also have just really enjoyed the Murderbot series and want to continue on with it. I also have Cibola Burn on my list, which is the 4th Expanse book. I'm hoping to keep up my momentum reading the Expanse books because the 9th book is coming out in October of this year, and that's going to be the final book in the series. And so I would like to be able to read the 9th book right around when it comes out. So I'm currently on the 3rd book, and if I finish that before the end of the year, that means I have 10 months to read 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means I have 10 months to read 5 more books before the new one comes out. So hopefully if I can read them like every other month-ish, maybe a little bit closer together than that so that I'm not in such a rush right when the new one comes out, that would be great. Also, my friend Rachel from The Shades of Orange is rereading this series because it's one of her favorite series, and she is also excited about the last one coming out. And she's doing a series of spoilery book reviews, book chats for the Expanse books as she rereads them. So if you are a fan of the Expanse books, you should definitely go check out those videos. And then the last science fiction book on my TBR is a chunker. This is like 600 pages, but it is also YA, and that is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. I have read the first 2 books in this series earlier this year and really have been enjoying this YA dystopian series. It has a really cool AI in it. I really like the world building, and I find some of the ideas explored in these books to be really interesting. The second one ended on kind of a major cliffhanger, like something really crazy happens at the end of the second one that I found really unexpected, and I have been dying to read this third one since I finished the second one. I was hoping to squeeze it in by the end of the year, but it's not looking like that's gonna happen, but I'm probably gonna start it before the end of the year. I've heard some mixed things about this last book in the trilogy. Some people thought it was really good, and some people didn't think it was that good, so I'm very interested to see what I will think of how the series ends. Okay, only a couple more books left. The one horror book that is on my TBR for the winter is The Shining by Stephen King. This will be my 3rd Stephen King book that I have ever read. I've heard really good things about it, and I know it takes place on a mountain that's like isolated in the snow, so it just seems like such a good wintry book to read. And so I'm hoping to read this one in January or February when things are, cold and wintry. I have been a little hit or miss with Stephen King. Like, the first Stephen King I read was Salem's Lot, and I thought it was pretty mediocre. I didn't really like it that much. That was pretty boring, to be honest. But then last year I read Pet Sematary, and I really loved that one. It was a lot more emotional than I was expecting, and I have a feeling that The Shining is going to be the same way, that it's going to evoke a lot of emotions. I know there's some like really dark stuff in there, like alcoholism and abuse and mental health stuff. I have seen the movies, and I enjoy the movies, but I have also, it's been a long time since I've watched them, so I'm not going to be constantly comparing them. I know they're really different. So I'm really looking forward to The Shining and seeing what I think of it. And then the last book on my TBR is a contemporary, which is not something I generally pick up, especially in the winter. Is not really like the time when I would pick up a contemporary, but this is actually for my work book club. It's our January book, and that is The Rosie Project. I don't actually know who that's by. It's by Graham Simpson. It's the first book in the Don Tillman series. This one is kind of like contemporary romance, but it has to do with a geneticist. He's a professor of genetics, and he's trying to find the perfect wife or something. Anyways, it has something to do with DNA, and it's a contemporary romance, so it actually fits really well with my work book club, just because, if you don't know, I work in genetics, and so I think that's why a lot of people were interested in reading it. I have heard some mixed things about this book, honestly. I think the main character, the professor of genetics, might be on the spectrum, and I've heard the representation may or may not be very well done, or that it might be sexist, or I don't know. I just heard some not great things about it, but I've also heard some people say they really enjoyed it and thought it was fun. So I really don't know what I'm gonna think of it, and I really don't know what my book club will think of it. We'll definitely have a little bit of a different perspective because of the genetics thing, but I also don't know how much that plays into the story. Alright guys, those are all the things on my winter TBR, all 20 books. Like I said, I won't be getting to all of them, but these are the books that I'm going to try to choose from over the next 3 months. I mean, honestly, I want to read all of them, so I don't know how I'm going to pick, but I'm just going to have to prioritize things as they come. A lot of the things on my list are things that I want to read for various book clubs or buddy reads and stuff. I think those will be prioritized more than things that aren't, but I also need to really make some progress on my TBR Jar Picks, so who knows what I'm gonna read in the next 3 months. You're just gonna have to stay tuned, subscribe, and see what I end up actually reading. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.